So I had to delete this video, the last video, for a couple of reasons, but I wanted to make this video about Gen Alpha and my opinion as to why Gen Alpha is really screwed up today, and why, because I was watching some TikTok videos as to why so many teachers are quitting. And they're complaining that Gen Alpha has no attention span, that their reading comprehension is behind, that their writing is behind, that they can't do math, and teachers are apparently quitting by the dozens, and they just don't want to deal with Gen Alpha anymore. I'm going to give my opinion in this video as to why I believe that Gen Alpha is screwed even more than Gen Z, not only economically, but also just education-wise. I don't think Gen Alpha is going to I don't think Gen Alpha is going to be the generation to pull any to make this economy better in any way, shape, or form. I don't even want to imagine the next 20 years how this economy is going to look like. I really don't even want to see the next 20 years myself, I'm being honest. But yeah, I'm going to give my opinion on why I think teachers are quitting by the dozens, and why I think they can't handle Gen Alpha, and why they're so screwed up. So I hate to say it, but the millennial generation, I believe the type of millennials that are raising this generation, Gen Alpha, are between 1990 and 1996. The later millennials, the ones that were in high school between 2008 to 2012. I could be wrong on this. But I don't think the older millennials, the ones that were born in the 80s, are really the problem. I could see a problem with my generation, even in high school. I could see a problem with the way they acted. I could see how they behaved. My generation was bad even back in high school. Like, we were fucking bad. And this was when smartphones were just coming out too. Like, we were not a good generation. I mean, there were teachers who were pissed at us. I grew up seeing how my generation acted and rebelled towards teachers and authority, and they were just generally not good in class. They didn't listen. They didn't want to pay attention. They were loud. They were horrible. Obviously that's, every generation has their, bad kids, but like, I could see a shift. I could see a change back when I was in high school in 2008 to 2012. I could see it I was, watching it from my point of view. I was watching how bad it was getting, and I could just I was even worrying back then about what our generation would become, what we were going to become like. And it's, I'm not saying it's all millennials, but I believe that a lot of millennials have unresolved issues from their, the way they were raised by their parents, their baby boomer parents, or their late Gen X parents, because those are the generations that would have raised us. It would most likely be baby boomers, or early Gen X to maybe late Gen X. Those are the people that millennials were raised by. A lot of them raised by baby boomers, and we all know the baby boomer generation is not a shining example of how to be a parent. I'm willing to bet a lot of us millennials were raised by baby boomer parents who put us in front of the TV, who put us in front of video games, who left us to our own devices, who were always working. They didn't have time for us. And yeah, as a result, many of them were abusive, I'm willing to bet. And as a result, this is what happens. A lot of us millennials, we came out fucked up. We came out really messed up. And you know, I'm I think that a lot of millennials are bringing their unresolved trauma from how our parents raised us, from how their parents raised us, or how our generation of parents raised us, I should say. And they're passing that on to their kids. They're passing that on into their adult race. They're bringing that trauma and that baggage into their adult relationships, and they're passing that on to their kids. And I see that a lot. Like, I see that even with my cousin. Like, my cousin's, he wasn't a millennial born in the 90s, but he is technically a millennial. The millennials are born, I believe it was, I'm almost positive it's from, the early 80s to the late 90s. Around 96 is when you stop, when you stop being a millennial. Gen Z starts at around 97, 98. But I can even see, I can even see how my cousin, raises his kids. Like, it's generational. The trauma is generational. Once it's very hard to break the cycle of trauma once you pass it down to somebody and they pass it down. It's very hard to, excuse me, it's very hard to break that. And I see the way my cousin raises his kids, and he's a millennial. He doesn't take care of them. He doesn't want to play with them. He ignores them much of the time. He ignores them. I mean, the last time I was out, the very last time that I should say, the very last time that I saw my cousins and my mom's side of the family, we were having a bonfire outside, and his kids really wanted to play with him, and we felt it's so bad because they're like 7 and 8 years old. They want to play with their dad. They wanted to play basketball with him, and he just looks at him and he just yells at him, and it's sad because I know that he was raised by his dad like that, and the cycle just repeats itself. That's what happens is, you go into a relationship, you get married, you have kids, you may or may not, you have unresolved trauma, and then you pass it on to them, and then their kids grow up with that, and then they pass it on to their kids, and the cycle repeats. But yeah, I see how he treats his kids, I mean, there was a time, like I said, the last time I saw him, his kids were there with him, and they wanted to play basketball, and he's like, no, and he treats them like a dog, just smacks them at the back of the head when they weren't even doing anything wrong. Anyway, I'm getting off point. I think that the parenting styles that our parents had, were abusive, and they were used back in the day to where it was acceptable to be used. And I think a lot of our parents are baby boomer parents. I don't like to call all baby boomers bad. A lot of them are shitty parents, but a lot of them did raise us millennials, with the notion, with the fact that how their parents raised them. I mean, it's a lot of them raised us the way their parents raised them, and a lot of them don't feel like they're doing anything wrong with the way that they raised us. A lot of them feel like they didn't do anything wrong with the way they raised us because their parents raised them like that. They grew up in a different time, in a different generation. So I think that's partially why Gen Alpha is so misbehaved, because they're not getting stimulation from the parents, from us millennials. They're not being raised in a proper way. Some millennial parents might be abusive to their kids. Others may just be neglectful without even knowing it. And I think a lot of them, whether they want to admit it or not, they use technology. They stimulate their brains too much with too much technology via the iPhone, the iPads, and the TV and the video games, just like a lot of us grew up with. You know, I grew up with I mean, yes, I did play outside, but I grew up with a lot of TV, a lot of video games. I was not being stimulated, you know, by my own parents. I was not, my brain was not being stimulated in a healthy way via reading, social interaction with other human beings, with other parents, playing outside with other kids. I did not get that. And as a result, I really didn't develop the social skills necessary to be able to really thrive in this world. And I think a lot of millennials are raising their kids the same. Like, they're the ones that can have kids. I mean, even if they can't, even the ones that can have kids, everything's so expensive. You know, they're probably always working. They probably don't have much time with their kids. Either one or both of the parents are probably always working. They're probably in front of, they're probably inside, you know, on something all the time, on some kind of technology. Well, like I said, whether that be the video games, through the iPhone, or something else. And their brains are not being stimulated in a way to promote growth and development. I know that it's not all millennials, but when I was with my ex, her sister's a millennial, around my age, 31 and 32, and you know, I see the way, you know, my ex's nephew was, my ex's sister's son, I should say, was. I saw during that year I was with her, I was observing the way he was growing up, the way they were raising him. I mean, he was not around many people in real life, interacting with many kids in real life. He was on the video games a lot. He was alone a lot. You know, he didn't really have much interaction with his other friends. You know, he did some of the time, but it wasn't much. A lot of it was online interaction. And that's just not the same as real life interaction. It's not. You're not getting the same. You're not getting the same stimuli as you would, you know, in a one-on-one real life interaction. You're not building trust and friendship between one another. You're not building real life social skills. It's completely different when you're talking with somebody through a screen than it is when you're visually looking at somebody in real life and you're talking with them in real life and you're gaining that social interaction. And I saw, like I said, I saw the way her nephew was growing up, and I just couldn't believe it. I was just like, you know, I grew up with video games and TV and everything like that, but this was just like on a whole nother level. To the point where it was just like he wasn't even being raised by anybody. It's really sad to see, to be honest. I think these Gen Alpha kids are misbehaving because they're not being properly loved at home. They're not getting the love and affection, and they're not gaining the social skills they need to eventually end up being a thriving adult, just like me. That's what happened with me. I didn't get the social skills I needed. I didn't get the love and attention that I needed, and you know, look at me. And now I'm in therapy for deep trauma work, and it sucks. Like, it sucks. My life really sucks. I'm not trying to make it about me, but I see where this is going with Gen Alpha, and I don't like it. Like, Gen Alpha is not, you know, kids do not just act out if there isn't something wrong. It all starts at home, okay? Kids just don't act out for no reason. Yes, the technology is definitely part of the problem, but it's clear that these kids are not being raised right. They're not being given the love and affection that they need, and it really hurts to see. You know, it breaks my heart to see that. to see what's happening with Gen Alpha. And I really hope that they turn out okay. At the very least, hopefully. And I hope that there is some kind of future for them. Because I don't know if I want to see what the next 15 to 20 years looks like. Because it's getting ugly out here. It already is really ugly out here. And yeah, I really feel for Gen Alpha. I really worry about them. I hope they're the generation that can turn this economy around. I hope, and I'm not even religious, but I even pray that they're gonna grow up to be okay. Because I know that not every Gen Alpha is, well, I mean, you know, I would consider my girlfriend's brother to be a later Gen Alpha, born in 2004 and 2005, and you know, he was completely raised with technology, with iPads and iPhones and TV, and it breaks my heart because the last time I talked to you know, my ex, we met up because her sister wanted to see how I was doing. It's really weird, but you know, I guess her sister had like grown a bond with me because I mean, we basically, well, I guess not really weird, like me and my girlfriend, we basically raised them ourselves. So but we met up, and her brother wasn't there, and I was asking her, like, where's your brother? And she was just like, she told me, she was like, he's not doing good. You know, he's hooked on marijuana, and he hates his life, and a therapist convinced him to drop out, and he blames my mom for this, and like, it really broke me. It broke me because we basically raised them. Like, we were there for them when her parents were not there for them. And to see that was really hard. Because I felt like we tried harder to raise them than her own parents tried to raise them. And it was just, I don't know, it really made me upset. But I hope, and I even pray, that Gen Alpha is, you know, turns out okay. You know, in 15, 20 years, I hope that there's a future for them. Whatever's left of this economy in 15, 20 years, whatever's left, if there's anything left, I hope that they just turn out okay. So, I'm going to end the video there. I don't really have anything else to say. I kind of got deep into this. So, until the next video, guys, I'll talk to you guys later. Take care.